Hello and welcome. My name is Louise Thomas and I am one of the HLTAs at the Redbridge Local Authority's SEN service called SEATs, and today we are going to be looking at top tips for a new TA working with SEN. Why do SEN students need support from a TA? When deployed effectively, TAs can support the progress of SEN students and help limit the negative impact of their specific barrier to learning. Some students need a TA to be an advocate on their behalf to ensure that practices in schools and classrooms support their needs. Some students may need TA support to ensure that they can access the curriculum and make positive contributions towards their own learning. TAs are put in place to ensure that schools become inclusive environments where every student has the opportunity to achieve. Inclusion is about how we structure our schools, our classrooms and our lessons so that all our students learn and participate together. TAs are a provision put in place to ensure that all students can access the curriculum and have equal opportunity to learn and achieve. Being a TA. Being a part of a school support team can be a very rewarding experience. As a TA, you have the potential to make a huge difference to a child's learning. All TAs work to a particular standard, and your job description will reflect these standards. For further details on the national standards for teaching assistants, please follow the link. A part of your role is to encourage students to work independently. You can do this by modelling and teaching the skills required to perform a particular task, while also providing all the necessary resources for that task to be successful, and adapting according to the student's needs. It's extremely important to understand the student's needs and the impacts to their barrier of learning. But it's equally important to build a rapport with your students, learn their strengths and weaknesses, and take into account their likes and dislikes. To develop a positive working environment for yourself and the students that you work with, it's important that you begin to establish positive relationships with your class teachers. Organisation can be the key to success. When supporting students, it's important to gather all necessary resources to support that child. Sometimes not having what is needed can be the difference between a positive outcome or a negative outcome. To ensure that you have the greatest impact towards their learning, have everything prepared. The needs of a student or the support requirements for a school can change from term to term or year to year. It's extremely important that you remain flexible and are open to being used in whatever capacity is needed. Continued professional development is encouraged within the SEN departments. You will be expected to do additional training to keep your practice up to date and ensure you always work within best practice. When working with the SEN department for the first time, it's really important that you feel confident in supporting SEN students. Below are a few tips in establishing that confidence. As you go through each one, give a yes or no answer if it's something you already do. Top tips for supporting teaching and learning. There are 4 main areas of support in schools. Here are 3 of them. You may be required to give in-class support to a number of SEN students, small group support for a few SEN students, or one-to-one support, which means you'll be working with an individual student. The 4th area of support is intervention, but we will look at that later on in the video. We are now going to be looking at some top tips for supporting teaching and learning in general. These tips can be used in class, in small groups, and within a one-to-one setting. It's important to remember that each student is an individual and their needs are individual to them. Adapt these tips to meet the requirements of the student. As you read through the list, make a note of any tips that you hadn't previously thought about. As you get to know your students, you will come up with your own strategies that work best for that individual child. Be sure to share them with the rest of your team. Students with more complex needs will need additional support. When students are displaying challenging behaviour, remember that all behaviour is a method of communication. When moments like this happen, try to assess what were the triggers and what is the student trying to communicate. Always start with a clean slate and never take any presenting behaviours personally. When you want to make sure that you have the student's full attention, always address them by name and encourage good eye contact. Use timers to set expectations of required focus times. Use praise when student displays good listening skills and is fully engaged in their learning. Use visual support, for example, gestures, signs, pictures, when giving information or instructions. Support students in regulating their emotions and behaviours. You can do this in many ways. There are programs throughout schools specifically to tackle this. Make sure that you know what program your school follows. You may also be called upon to mediate any kind of conflict when a student is distressed. When a student is distracted, prompt them back to the task, either verbally or by giving them a known gesture. Set clear and consistent boundaries for behaviour and expectations of work. Use the reward systems within your school to encourage students and motivate them to work independently. Set up a routine for the students that you're working with and make sure that you communicate any changes to that routine beforehand. Try to minimize as many distractions as possible. The first step to do this is making sure that the student has a clean and clear workspace. Always have a child-centered approach. This will mean that you will adapt to meet the needs of the student. When working with complex students, always remember that a positive approach will equal positive outcomes. Developing SEN knowledge is key to success. In your day-to-day practice, you may encounter SEN acronyms. The table below highlights the most commonly used within the SEN department. Although it's important to understand these acronyms, you're not necessarily going to get tested on them, so don't feel any pressure to know them all by heart. Now and next boards are used to show students what they are doing and what activity comes next. Visual timetables help establish routines within the school day. Both of these tools are visual aids that help smooth transitions from one activity to the next. Students should be encouraged to play an active role in removing tasks once they are complete. Work trays help to establish set expectations for learning. They are put in place to present students' work for the morning, afternoon, or whole school day. With support from their assigned TA, students are expected to collect prepared tasks from their trays and work on them independently. When preparing work trays for less able students, you may want to consider setting up one activity at a time. Workstations are a way of one-to-one students working within a classroom. It involves more structure, routine, visual cues, and helps to minimize distractions. Both of these strategies are put in place to promote independent learning. Here are a few communicative tools that are used within classrooms. Makaton uses a combination of signs, symbols and speech to aid in communication development. It also supports the development of language skills such as attention, listening, comprehension, memory and expression. If your school uses Makaton and you would like to learn some basic signs, please follow the link to the video on our channel. PEX is an alternative communication tool that uses visual symbols to teach students how to communicate with staff, parents and peers. If students are able, have the students verbally say the symbol that they have presented you with.
If they cannot do this, ensure that you always repeat the symbol back to them. Assistive technology normally come in the form of devices, software, or equipment. They help students work around any particular learning challenges they might have. Assistive technology is commonly used within the classroom as a communication tool. Targeted interventions are the fourth area of support that you may be expected to participate in. You will receive additional training within your school to facilitate these interventions. These interventions can be taught in a whole class, group setting, or one-to-one. Your SENCO will determine the most appropriate setting for the intervention. Common literacy interventions in school. Phonics is a method of teaching students to read using sounds with symbols in an alphabetic writing system. Within schools, there are a number of literacy programs that target reading and writing, for example, Project X or Read Write Inc. Leveled readers are books organised by level or complexity, with short simple sentences and corresponding pictures for reference. Handwriting interventions can be put in place for any students that need additional support when they are struggling with a particular handwriting skill. Tips for promoting literacy development in lessons. Using word maps will give students a point of reference and support development in vocab and sentence structure. Producing visual aids for keywords will help students process information and retain what is being taught. For lower ability students, closed caption tasks can replace the extended writing task if done appropriately. When completing a reading activity in class, ensure that you always use the same methods that are taught to the student within their intervention literacy classes. When reading aloud to students, make it fun and engaging. You can do this by giving characters voices or by using tactile resources such as puppets. When working with levelled readers, ensure that the reader you have chosen is in correspondence with the student's levels. Numeracy is a method of teaching maths that helps students make connections between numbers by using visual prompts and tactile resources. Some schools may use dedicated programs to accelerate the numeracy skills of their students, for example, Maths Watch, My Maths, or Numeracy Ninjas. Tips for promoting numeracy development in lessons. Number lines help students that are struggling with number order. By giving them this visual reference, you allow them to continue to work independently. Giving students access to numeracy maps will ensure that they have points of reference throughout their numeracy lessons. Remember that the resources that you use for math can be differentiated or made interactive. For example, number recognition can be taught interactive by having the student create the number 9 using Play-Doh, and then they can make 9 little balls to fit in the box. Having interactive numeracy exercises will enable the student to apply skills learned into a real-life scenario. Using tactile resources for a numeracy task can help the student process information. It could also enable them to work more independently. You may be asked to complete needs-specific interventions. This can be done in a small group setting or one-to-one. These interventions tend to be skill-based. A few examples of these interventions are fine motor skills, social skills groups, and speech and language groups, or one-to-one sessions. Begin to think about what kind of intervention programs your school offers. Do you have the skills and experience in any of these interventions? If you don't, are you willing to go on to further training to develop these skills? Have you already spoken to your SENCO about possible training in delivering interventions? To be better prepared for your new role, ensure to read your school's SEN inclusion policy, safeguarding policy, teaching and learning policy. These documents tie into legislation that ensures best practice and impacts your day-to-day role. If you found this video useful, please support this channel by liking this video, subscribing and hitting the notification button.